Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today we are going to be creating these two cards, and I wanted to show you how just a tiny bit of texture will change the look and feel of your project. So first up, I have my sticky mat below me, and I also have a piece of 8.5 by 5.5, and I'm going to cut this in half to create two A2 card bases. For my main background, I am going to be using the Stencil Art Charming Delight. This is so pretty. So I have the stencil that has the largest image on to make it easier to create my background, and this itself is the leaf, the first leaf layer. So I'm just going to pop that into position onto my card panel. And I'm starting from the middle. I find that it's easier to start in the middle and then kind of work out from that. And then make more of a jigsaw puzzle rather than trying and work inwards, and then you may not have enough room for one of the images that you need to go in there. So if you work from the middle and then work out, it is far easier to kind of control that. So for the first leaf layer, I will be using the Misty Moor ink for the leaves, and then that little stem piece that we have there, I am going to use the Marshland ink to add that in, as that's a little bit darker and I wanted to kind of differentiate between the leaves and the little stem that we have there. I'm using a small blending tool to add in the leaves, but I'm also using a mini blending tool to add the stems in so I don't have to do any masking. So once that has been done, I am going to add the flower in just to see how much more room that takes up, and it doesn't really take up a lot, so I will be using the leaves further on just to kind of get my placement. So once I have the base layer into place for the petals, I'm going to be using a couple of different colours to add a variant touch to these flowers. So first ink I am going to be using is the Peachy Keen ink. This is a very perfect peach colour, so I'm just going to add a couple of spots of this into place onto that open space that we have in the stencil. I am using a small blending tool for this. I find that because this is such a large open area, even though it's kind of small, it is really large. I am using the small blending tool for this, but you could use the mini one if you wanted to. It's completely up to you which you find is your preference. Once I've added enough of that Peachy Keen, I'm then going to go in with some of the Pink Pearl, and I'm kind of blending those colours together, creating a beautiful gradient which will add a lot of interest and dimension to the overall look of the finished card later on. As you can see, I'm just going to keep going into the ink and blending those colours together, and then making sure that all of the open area that we have in the stencil is nicely covered. I just love this kind of colour blended together, the peach and the pink. I find it so pretty. If you don't have a peachy colour, you could go for a light orange. That would give you a very pretty effect too. So once that has been done, like I said before, I'm just then going to use the leaf layer that we have here to pop everything in place so I can then see how my background is going to work. So I'm just going to use this one stencil, moving it around, making sure I'm working from the inside out to make sure that I have all of the space available to me covered with this image. I'm making sure that they're not kind of covering or touching each other when I do this. But if you do get some places that are covering or touching, that's not going to take away from the beautiful effect that you will get in the end. So as before, I am using that Misty Moor for the leaves with a small blending tool, and also the Marshland ink for the little stems that we have there with the mini blending tool. So once that is all done, I can then add in the flowers, and you can see that now I have the kind of arrangement in the background done. It's so much quicker for me to kind of place the flowers in and then just do all of them in one go. It's really easy to get the kind of placement ready before you add in all of the layers. So I'm just doing the same colors as before. I do have that Peachy Keen ink, which is the fresh ink, and also the pink pearl ink. As you can see, I'm using a fresh ink and also a dye ink. There have been many questions to see if you can use these inks together for ink blending, and as you can see, they work perfectly fine together. You can mix and match these and it is not going to cause any bother or problem. The fresh ink, I do think, has a little extra time to blend with, so if you do struggle with ink blending, I would recommend that you go for the fresh inks because they do have a little bit more of a drying time, but they do really dry quickly as well. So if you want a little bit more, go for the fresh. So once that has been done, I'm then going to move on to the second layer of the flower. So I'm just popping that into place. It's on the same stencil. And for this here, I am going to be using the cotton candy ink, and I'm trying to add that over the pink pearl ink that we have underneath. And then for the other color that we're going to be adding on this, I am going to be using the Coral Bliss. And that one I am going to add over the Peachy Keen ink that we have. Again, I'm really loving these color tones together. They are so pretty and work so well with each other. So once that's been done, I can remove that stencil and just place that onto the second one that we have over here. As you can see, I'm using my sticky mat under me. That means that the stencil is actually going to stick to the mat that is on top of it. So I don't need to use any tape to kind of stick this down, which really adds to the kind of quickness of this. I don't need to think about adding the tape or tearing it when I remove it. I really do love the sticky mat. It does add a lot of time to a lot of free time really to my crafting, and I love it so much. Once that has been done, we're going to move in with the third layer, and this time we're going to go a little bit out of the box with the colors that we're then going to use. So here I actually have Lavender Fields and also the Deep Iris inks. So I'm going to add the Lavender Fields over the whole portion of the open area on this third layer, and then I'm going to add that darker color right in the center to add that beautiful shading there. I think this looks so cool, very different, but a very kind of pretty look as well. It's a little bit trendy. It reminds me of some kind of printed curtains that I've seen somewhere, but I think that this kind of color combo, even though it's different, it is really cool and pretty at the same time. So just a reminder, I am using the Lavender Fields and also the Deep Iris to add the colors on to this one here. Again, these are crisp inks and I'm laying them on top of the fresh inks so you can see that everything works perfectly together. Once I've finished all of the layers, I'm then going to move on to stencil number 4, and we're going to go in with some dark blues. This time I have Desert Night in the fresh ink, which I'm going to add all over the open area, and then I'm going to add the Dark Night at the center to add more of a deepness to that blue color. Just look how that really dark color really makes the images pop. I just love the layering stencils that Altenew do. It makes it so easy to create these beautiful, different and cool effects. So I'm just going to keep going with this until I have covered all of the areas, and then we can add the second and other layers to the little berries that we have and the leaves. So here we go. I'm going to add in the berries. As it's a small area, I'm just going to be using one of the colors from the first layer, and that is going to be the pink pearl. And I'm going to do that on all of the little berry or bud or even blossom layers that we have on this. If you wanted to, you could definitely mix up the colors as well. You don't need to do these the same color as the flowers that you have. So I'm going to go ahead and finish all of those, and then we're going to move on to the first layer of the leaves, a second layer of the leaves, sorry, and this I'm going to use the Marshland ink. I am using a small blending tool for this because we do have quite a bit of area to cover. I am trying to add more of that ink to the base of these leaves rather than the tips to give us a beautiful gradient effect on those. And I am going to go ahead and do exactly the same thing on all of the other leaf images that we have with the Marshland ink. And you can see just how quick and easy it is to add those beautiful layers there. I'm then going to move on to the second layer of the little tiny blooms that we have. And I'm going to be using the Coral Bliss for those ones. So you may need to kind of twist this around a little bit to get these in place. If you don't get them perfectly in place, they're still going to look really pretty. So don't worry too much about it. I'm then going to move on to the third layer of the leaves. So I'm just popping that into place, sticking that down on my sticky mat. And for this layer here, I am going to be using the Sea Forest. This is one of my favorite greens. It is kind of a dirtier shade than the olive. I think this is so, so pretty. And it would work with the olive shades that you have in the tropical forest to make them a touch darker. So once that has all been done, we're then going to add the third layer to the little blossoms that we have. And for the third layer of the blossoms, I'm going to be using some of the Deep Iris ink to add in that purple touch. I am using my small blending tool for this, but if you find using the mini ones makes you feel a little bit more in control, please go ahead and use those. So once all of the little blooms have been completed, I'm then just going to add the last layer of the leaves, and for this one here I'm going to be using the mangrove root, and this will add the stem in as well to add that really dark colour to the stems. Once that has all been done, all I need to do then is add in the flower centers. Now there are 4 layers for these flower centers, but I did choose to use only 3. You don't necessarily have to use all of the flower layers if you don't want to. For the first one, I went in with the marshland. The second layer that I'm adding in now, I am going to go in with the fabulous marshland. And then for the third layer, which I'm actually skipping on to the 4th, I am going to be using the Sea Forest ink to add in those tiny little dots. And here is the background complete. So to create 2 cards, all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut those down the center. So I now have 2 panels which are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. For the first one, I'm just going to add some tape onto my card base. This is the largest ultra sticky tape that we have. This is the 1 inch, and I just added 3 strips of that. You're not going to need any more than that whatsoever. And I'm just going to place one of the panels into place onto that, and that is the whole of the background complete. For the second one, I wanted to add a touch of texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Textured Hexagons 3D embossing folder, and I'm just going to place that whole panel inside. Once that is nicely in place, I'm then going to run that through my die cutting machine. And what that's going to do is it's going to add all of that texture onto that stamped image that we have. And it's really going to change the look of that background. As you can see, all of that texture has been added to the background and also the flowers that we have there. As running a panel through a 3D embossing folder does change the shape a little, I have trimmed it down to size to make sure that all of the edges on the side of the panel are nice and crisp. Once that has been done, what I'm going to do is add some of the Instant Dimension foam tape on the back and then add that to my card base. And you can see just how pretty yet different these are. For the sentiments, I've used the Essential Sentiments hot foil plate. I have hot foiled that with some gold foil and then die cut that out using the coordinating die. To add a little bit of dimension to this, I'm just going to add some more of that Instant Dimension foam tape behind. All I've done is I have trimmed this so we're into a little strip, so it was easier to add that to behind there. And here are the cards complete. I love them both equally. I love the colors on here, and even that added texture really does add something a little bit different to this design. I really do hope that you've enjoyed the video. If you do create a card like this, please share because we would love to see. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't want to miss anything, please subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye. Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.